Okay, this is going to be day 65, part 3. Normally I only do 1 or 2 parts, but this is going to be a supplement for questions that I get. A lot of people have asked about the hedge fund and the Bridgewater thing, and they don't quite understand how Comey's movements through there, so I'll cover that. There's also folks doing investigation on the sex trafficking stuff. I started that way in 1989 and did some other work in 2002 and 2003 in that area. And I don't really want to go there, but I'm going to drop a few breadcrumbs from the stuff I know from those investigations way back when. So I'll go right to the Comey thing. Comey spent 2002, 2003, up to 2005, kind of going after rich people that lived in the state of New York. Now, I'm not saying he was extorting them. If they didn't give to the Clinton Foundation, they would be prosecuted, but there were a lot of bigwigs prosecuted on Wall Street that cases later fell through. I'm thinking of the Quattrone case. I'm thinking of kind of the trumped-up case against Martha Stewart. But then Comey gets placed while Hillary's on the Senate Arms Committee in 2005. Comey gets kind of implanted into Lockheed, and he stays there for 5 years. And when he leaves, he gets paid. Now, I say he's being installed there because they were under threat of investigation. And I say that there was pay to play going on with their contractors, and Hillary wanted to get in between all that payola that happens in arms deals. That's just an assertion. I don't have proof of that. But once you're there, you find out what the big new projects are. F-35 was the project coming down the line. From the Joint Strike Fighter turned into the F-35 in 2005. And you learn who all the subcontractors are. So it's very valuable information to a hedge fund. Well, it just so happens he goes to the biggest hedge fund in the country, and they create that in 2013. It's called I call it the NATO. He goes there in 2010, right before the invasion. I call it the NATO Libya hedge fund. He called it the Pure Alpha hedge fund. He also said, I'm the hyena that eats the wildebeests. So I know Pure Alpha. Alpha is a financial term meaning pure growth, and then beta is the amount of risk. So so anyway, I understand why Pure Alpha is not necessarily a predatory term, but it was the largest hedge fund holder in the world. And it became the largest new hedge fund. And he's still the largest at $65 billion. And you can see, again, here he is at the World Economic Forum. The World Bank is always there, saying where the projects are going to be. This is the Eric Braverman piece, the George Soros piece. This is the Davos piece that's coming up right before Trump's inauguration. This is why I say if they're going to do anything about Trump, the decisions are going to be made there, or they're going to be made now in the prelim meeting getting ready for the World Economic Forum. And I'm talking about stingers and Trump's plane. So then Comey goes over to HSBC because we're going after that $256 billion. The cash is easy. And the first step when you get the stingers and get the $30 billion in cash, that's quick. But what you want is these hidden assets that Soros is going to be bleeding out of Libya. And that's the HSBC piece. That's why Comey comes in to do the settlement. So the total take on it is somewhere between $65 billion and $265 billion. That's why the $1.9 billion settlement was rather comical. And again, no jail time. You always know when there's no jail time that you had a quid pro quo. The $1.9 billion is a big number, but nothing in comparison to the total take on. So this is the Libya cleanup. This is kind of like the Libya, when the bill comes, and this is the withdrawal. This is the completion of the withdrawal for the second phase for part 2. So I hope that explains the connection to NATO, because the NATO generals are all meeting in 2005. That's why you need to get all these folks who were a part of breaking up Yugoslavia. All these generals now are in positions of power to make decisions about the F-35. That's why you got to have Comey in there to get set and set up this consortium, set up this hedge fund with all these NATO generals. And that's why you need a guy like this, the Chandelon, who did the topples. He did all these topples for Yugoslavia 10 years ago, and now he's going to do the topples for Libya, and he's going to do the topple for Syria and Egypt and Tunisia through Optor. So he's the Optor guy. And Comey's going to bring over all those, like I said, he's going to bring over all those startups for the F-35, get all the generals to buy in to that is the platform. That way your investments pay off. You know you're going to have a market. You know you're going to have a platform for, you know you're going to have a razor for your razor blades, in other words. And that's this Bridgewater hedge fund, this $10 billion that's created in a couple of weeks before, well, it's a couple of weeks after this step one of this topple happens, after they take Benghazi. So I hope that helps. Now, this slide, everyone's saying, well, you keep dropping these hints on this 3-year gap. Now, this is a sex trafficking piece. I don't want to be a part of this investigation, but I will kind of follow it from a distance, and and this is the conspiracy theory part that I don't want any part of, and I'll let everybody else run with it. But there was a case in 1989 that I was involved in, which is the Franklin scandal, and there was kids being taken from South Middle West America to being flown to the White House. A lot of people have died in this, so I really don't want to talk about it too much. But if you were an aspiring CIA lawyer, okay, living in the Southwest, and this boys' town in Omaha had been exposed, and you could no longer have a spot because of the increased attention to Boys Town, you might pick another place, like maybe a city in Texas, and that's all I'll say about that. And you might keep the kids there. And then you might have the stringers, the people who are finding kids, bring those kids to that Texas town. And that's why you have a lot of people with automatic weapons there, and that's why you have this kind of harem situation. Now, if a couple of people living there, like a couple of the beta males, not the alpha males that are going and the stringers are going and getting these kids, but you have a couple of the beta males that start saying, hey, this is sex trafficking, then you have a problem. You need to shut it down. And then you need to move it, if you have a lot of kids, you need to move it somewhere else, maybe in a neighboring state. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to just drop those breadcrumbs for those people doing that investigation. I don't want to push any of that, but I thought I would pass that along from some of the things I know. Okay? Thanks.